It doesn't matter that the shooter was trans.
It's time! It's finally time!
Hi.
Why did you turn your comments off? There's a pride flag for people who don't know their label or don't like to have labels.
If you're scrolling through TikTok and suddenly your eardrums are assaulted by the loudest, most aggressive yelling you've ever heard in your life, that's just Fuzzz99, a 29-year-old TikTok creator who is deemed one of the most annoying lolcows of all time. A guy who has made it his entire personality to scream educational content about LGBTQ+ rights directly into your soul. The thing is, Fuzzz99 doesn't just yell once in a while for dramatic effect. This is his thing. Every single video starts with him stomping his foot so hard, you'd think he's trying to crack the foundation of whatever building he's in, getting so close to the camera that you can practically count his pores. But the yelling is just one feature of this Fuzzz99 guy, because there are worse things to discover. In 2022, some allegations started circulating claiming that allegedly Fuzzz99 had inappropriate contact with a minor, as in having contact with a kid. Not just that, the way he moved with his content, every single person was convinced that Fuzzz99 was probably involved in grooming kids and was using his LGBTQ teachings to attract them even more. Following this, he disappeared from the internet for months, deleted content, went private, and didn't say a word. And because he stayed silent, everyone just assumed he was guilty, because why else would he run and hide?
I currently am being advised by the police to take a step back from TikTok.
For months, the internet labeled him a predator, and those accusations stuck to him like glue. Even when he eventually came back to TikTok and tried to resume his content, every single comment section was flooded with people calling him a predator and asking why he was even allowed back on the platform. But here's the thing that made it even worse. The LGBTQ+ community that he claimed to be representing and educating completely turned on him too.
If this person shows up one more time on my For You page, I swear to God, it's gonna end up being
Not conservatives saying this, actual queer people, trans people, the very community he was supposedly fighting for. They made videos explaining that his content wasn't helping. It was actually making things worse, turning queerness into a spectacle, reinforcing negative stereotypes that they'd spent years trying to break down. Now this is where it gets interesting. This 29-year-old person is doing all of this screaming from his childhood bedroom in his parents' house, where his family has to listen to him do this every single day.
So I do live with my whole family, and yes, they do hear me scream every single day, and y'all are gonna be introduced to them. But
he's even admitted it on camera, admitting that he lives with his whole family and they do hear me scream every single day. And honestly, I don't know what's more wild. The fact that he's screaming like this daily, or the fact that his parents just let it happen. Now for years, Fuzzz99 positioned himself as this loud, proud LGBTQ+ educator who is going to teach the world about gender identity.
I'm pretty sure you forgot to put a space between A.
Pronouns.
Foremost, your gender and your pronouns are not connected. If you identify as female, you can totally go by he, him pronouns if that.
Queer history and acceptance.
It's the first day of Pride!
He's countlessly called himself a king, something he boldly put up in his bio. He shows off his themed haircuts that he described as spooky, spooky adventures.
Spooky, spooky haircut.
Talks openly about wearing binders.
Do not put trans tape over your vest and then a binder, because that is super duper dangerous and can lead to your body.
And would call his audience in this overly familiar way that just leaves everyone wondering, is this person really okay?
I have an announcement! I got invited to go play in my first ever.
But then you see the videos like this one where Fuzzz99 goes on a full rant, asking who would possibly want to be straight, talking about how straight people are boring, limited, and have no real culture or community worth mentioning.
It actually really sucks that straight cis couples never have to worry about holding hands or kissing in public.
He kept doubling down on this rhetoric, posting multiple videos about how being straight was essentially the worst thing you could be, which is pretty wild coming from someone whose entire platform was supposedly built on acceptance and love.
Straight.
So y'all don't get tired of talking about us all the time, bro? I blame.
But if you really want to understand how everything fell apart for Fuzzz99, you have to go back to before all the internet drama. Back when he had an actual job as a substitute teacher and camp counselor. During this time, he'd post about my gay kids online, talking about his students in this possessive way that made a lot of people uncomfortable. And apparently his students knew about his TikTok because they were writing Fuzzz99 on their classroom whiteboards.
And 2, apparently the freshmen were writing my username on whiteboards, and the school...
He was also filming content about school, blurring the lines between being their teacher and being an influencer who had minors engaging in his very adult online presence. Then one day he posted this incredibly emotional video announcing that he'd lost his teaching job, and his story was that he'd been hate crimed and fired specifically for being queer.
I was recently hate crimed for being queer. And as a result of me being hate crimed for being queer, it ultimately led to me being fired from my job as a high school substitute teacher.
Except that's not what actually happened. Fuzzz99 wasn't fired for his identity at all. He was fired for conduct violations, boundary issues with students, and using his position as an educator to grow his influencer platform. But Fuzzz99 never corrected the record. He kept pushing the hate crime narrative, and that's when a lot of people in the LGBTQ+ community started pulling away. Because weaponizing your identity to dodge accountability doesn't just hurt you, it makes it harder for people who actually face discrimination to be believed. So how did it get this bad? How does someone go from 450,000 followers and millions of views to being called a predator by the internet and rejected by the very community they tried to represent? Now let's start with one particular video that describes and shows how annoying and completely abnormal this creator Fuzzz99 is. It starts the way all his videos start. He does this double foot stomp that shakes the camera. His arms shoot up like he's at a rock concert, and then he yells, and already you're thinking, okay, here we go again, another loud educational rant about LGBTQ+ topics. But then he gets really close to the camera, like really close. Close enough that you can see the sweat on his forehead, the yellow staining on his teeth, every single pore on his nose.
Well...
He starts doing these finger guns, popping them left and right like a little kid playing cops and robbers. He's swaying side to side like someone leading a children's song. His voice goes up into this high-pitched, almost chipmunk register. Now the question is, why is a 29-year-old man acting like an 8-year-old while teaching people about gender and sexuality? This is very disturbing, because this wasn't just loud and annoying like his usual stuff. This feels deliberately designed to appeal to children. The finger guns, the clapping games, the bouncing, the voice, it all looks like preschool TikTok. Except it's coming from an adult man talking about gender identity. So now that you've seen why everyone hates him, let's actually talk about who this person is, because there's a real human being behind all that screaming. Fuzzz99's real name is Mal Fanikos, though some people call him Mal or Mac. He's 29 years old as of 2026, which means he was 23 when he started making content back in 2020.
Gender fluid. Someone whose gender is fluid. Mind blown. Alright, but in all seriousness, gender fluid is basically someone who doesn't identify as really male or female, and their gender's fluid. So one day...
He identifies as trans, masculine, and non-binary, uses he/they pronouns, and describes himself at various times as omnisexual, queer, and a demi-boy. And all of this content, every single video for the past 6 years, has been filmed from his childhood bedroom in Massachusetts, the same room he grew up in. Rainbow posters on the walls, messy desks covered in makeup and hair dye. He calls his followers fuzzballs and treats them like they're part of this exclusive community. Like being a fuzzball means something special, when it really just means you follow a guy who yells about pronouns.
Fuzz is just a little fuzzball that you find under your couch or on your clothes.
Another cringy and quite disturbing side of Fuzzz99 is how his whole look is part of what he calls gender adventures. He'll dye his hair different colors and call it an adventure. Jolly, jolly haircut one week.
Jolly haircut, jolly haircut, jolly haircut time. No, we're not gonna get a spooky haircut, cause it's Christmas time. Hey, jolly haircut, jolly haircut.
Spooky, spooky haircut the next.
Spooky, spooky haircut. Spooky, spooky haircut. Spooky, spooky.
Always framing it as this exciting journey of self-expression. He posts about wearing binders, for obvious reasons, shows off his outfit choices, documents every aspect of his gender journey like it's a reality show that nobody signed up to watch. Now Fuzzz99's actual content is LGBTQ+ education, explaining what omnisexual means, breaking down the difference between gender and pronouns, teaching people about pride flags and queer history.
People who identify as omnisexual fall under the bisexual umbrella. Like pansexuals, omnisexuals love all genders. But
So on paper, what he's doing should be helpful. Educational content about LGBTQ+ topics delivered to hundreds of thousands of people. That should be something, right? Except the delivery is what people actually hate so much. Fuzzz99 comes out as so aggressive, performative, and over the top that it drowns out whatever message he's trying to send. Like, dude, you can pass your message across without screaming, foot stomping, getting 2 inches from the camera and yelling at us. And if you think that's the only annoying thing this guy pulls off his sleeve, the constant repetition of the same thing will set you off even more. He's explained what omnisexual means at least 20 times, just repackaged with a different haircut or a different outfit.
what's omnisexual? And why the heck does their flag look like this?
What's the difference? Yow! Pansexual versus
So here's where things get really messy, because the people who should have been Fuzzz99's biggest supporters, the LGBTQ+ community he spent 6 years trying to educate and represent, wanted nothing to do with him. And this wasn't just straight people or conservatives finding him annoying. This was the actual community saying, "We don't claim this." In October 2022, Twitter user Scribbles posted a now deleted video of Fuzzz99 with the caption, "This is top 2 worst accounts, and it ain't number 2. In the video, he made a statement that riled the entire internet and said, "Nobody wants to be straight." People, including gay folks, agreed that Fuzzz99 was embarrassing the community he claimed to represent.
It's like blah, because nobody wants to be straight.
Dear straight people, I am a gay person that actually does value your friendship and value what you give to society. I don't know what this woman is talking about. So I just wanted to show appreciation. Straight people, you help fill the planet with more people, so thank you. I appreciate you, because I have cognitive dissonance and I know how biology works.
Before he deleted that September video and turned off the comments, queer people were flooding in with messages like, "I don't really care about them as a person. It's frustrating that people like this person get in the scope of so many who push hate. Do LGBTQ+ members even like this person? No, we don't." Even creators who defended him against the predator accusations had to admit he was a problem. Paige Christie, a queer creator, made a video in November 2022 where she said he's one of the most annoying content creators. He catapulted to fame by being possibly the most annoying person on the platform.
So today we are going to be talking about Fuzzz99, the most annoying person on TikTok, and asking ourselves, are they really a groomer?
So what was the actual problem? Why did the community reject someone who was giving information about LGBTQ+ topics? Because he was reinforcing every negative stereotype that the community had spent years trying to break down. The over-the-top dramatic reactions to everything fed into this idea that queer people are hysterical, unhinged, and can't have a normal conversation without turning it into a theatrical performance. So after the community rejection, something happened that changed everything. And it started with Fuzzz99 going silent. A while later, he started locking comments on his videos. People were flooding in with criticism, mockery, accusations, and he just shut it down.
But I turned comments off because there's a bigger plan already in motion, baby. that only I know about. So stay tuned, baby.
That dismissive tone, that I know something you don't attitude, it only made people more suspicious. What plan? What was he talking about? Soon enough, the rumors started. Late September, vague accusations started flying around that Fuzzz99 creates his content to appeal to minors, and he was secretly having sexual conversations with one. Now, this is the kind of allegation that once they're out there, they stick to you whether they're true or not. TikTok stitches were all over, with people calling him a predator, connecting his childish delivery style with his substitute teaching job, and saying the dots were there all along.
Dating a masculine switch/bottom.
You are marketing to children. Your content is pretty much exclusively for children, because no one in their right mind who's an adult is going to look at your account and be like, yep, this is fine. This is my content. This is good shit for me. If you are making content for children, first of all, you need to not make content about being a bottom, but you also not need to like ask fans of yours if they want to date you. I didn't think that needed to be clarified, but okay. I know that this video is old. He has a girlfriend. Good for them, I guess. Someone had better be keeping an eye on this guy.
Through all of this, Fuzzz99 said nothing. Then some days later, he posted one final video, and he looked different. No footsteps, yelling, or "I'm glad you asked" energy.
But I currently am being advised by the police to take a step back from TikTok. I have to take a break for a little while until a lot of this hate calms down. It might be a week, it might be a month, it might be a year, it might be forever. I truly don't know how long of a break that I'm going to take or have to take.
The police were involved. That's what he said. No details about what happened or explanations of the accusations, just that there was an incident serious enough that cops had to get involved. But he did go on to clarify some things his haters had to say about him grooming kids.
One, I've never once said that my content is for kids or that my intent has been to make content for kids. I never said I hate straight people. I literally said, like, who would want to be straight? Blech.
Fuzzz99, that sounds almost like the same thing, but whatever. About 2 weeks later, someone posted on a subreddit "Our TikTok cringe" with the title "Fuzz is finally leaving TikTok," and people were celebrating. 200 plus upvotes, comments saying good riddance, hoping he'd stay gone. And then for a while there was nothing from Fuzzz99. No posts, updates, or explanations. But here's what almost no one talks about. Before those accusations and disappearance, there was his job, his substitute teaching job, and the kids. To understand why those grooming accusations spread like wildfire in 2022 and why people were so ready to believe them, you need to rewind to 2021, because that's when Fuzzz99 had a real job working with actual kids. Starting in early 2021, around the same time as TikTok was blowing up, Fuzzz99 was working as a substitute teacher in Worcester Public Schools in Massachusetts, high school specifically. Worcester is in central Massachusetts, and the school district was desperate for subs at the time. They were raising pay because they couldn't find enough people willing to do the job. So Fuzz got hired, and for about 2 years, from 2021 to early 2023, he was bouncing between high schools as a substitute.
Many of my kids in the hallways and at the end of the day at school, like, I can't even tell you how many high fives I got, how many daps I got, and like there is truly.
And he talked about it constantly on TikTok. He'd post videos saying, being a high school substitute is pretty cool sometimes, with heart emojis, talking about interactions he had with students, sharing stories from the classroom. Before that, in the summers of 2020 and 2021, he worked as a camp counselor, youth-focused camps with kids aged 12 to 18. So this wasn't his first time working with minors. He'd been around kids in positions of authority for years, but it's the language he used that made people uncomfortable. In 2021 and 2022, he started posting videos with captions like, "My gay kid's this" and "My gay kid's that." Stuff like that, though those videos are gone now.
Guess who just got home from their first day of school? I did. I had a bunch of my gay kids that I had last year.
My gay kids, over and over again. This possessive language, like he owned these kids, like they belonged to him instead of just being students he occasionally taught. And even back then, people were pointing out that this was weird. And this just started the speculations that he was making his crazy content for kids. Most teachers keep their professional and personal lives separate. They don't share stories about specific students on social media, and they absolutely don't create content that blurs the line between educator and influencer. But Fuzzz99 was doing all of that, and by summer 2022, when he was still working as both a camp counselor and a substitute teacher, the overlap between his job and his online persona was at its peak. So when videos dropped with the childish delivery, the weird giggle, the finger guns, the whole preschool teacher energy while talking about gender and sexuality, people didn't see it in isolation. They saw it in context. And suddenly the comments shifted from, "This is annoying," to, "Wait, he works with kids?" And "This makes sense now why he talks like that." The grooming accusations hadn't hit yet. That was still a few weeks away, but the foundation was being laid. Every My Gay Kids post was building a case in people's minds that something wasn't right about this guy. And then sometime in late 2022 or early 2023, he lost the teaching job. And the story he told about why he was fired, that's when things really fell apart. So for more than a year after he'd actually lost the job, Fuzzz99 finally told his side of the story, and he did it in a 20-minute YouTube video that was completely different from anything he'd ever posted before. And I mean, there were no foot stomps or yelling, just him close to the camera about to tell everyone what happened.
I was recently hate crimed for being queer, and as a result of me being hate crimed for being queer, it ultimately led to me being fired from my job as a high school substitute teacher.
According to him, here's what went down. In November 2023, some hater from the internet decided to dig through his old TikTok videos from 2020, back before he was even a teacher. Videos he described as thirst traps from his long hair femme era when he was on dating apps. And this hater, according to Fuzzz99, took screenshots of those old videos and emailed them to the HR department at Worcester Public Schools on November 2nd, 2023.
In September of last year, I was called into HR's office for 1, being reported by the haters, and 2, apparently the freshmen were writing my username on whiteboards, and the school wanted to make sure I wasn't self-promoting my brand, which I wasn't.
The old videos were just the thing that made HR finally pay attention to something they'd been concerned about for over a year, because while Fuzzz99 was crying on camera about being hate crimed, people were going back through his timeline and finding all those My Gay Kids posts. According to the investigation, which included leaked details from HR meetings, the school had actually warned Fuzzz99 back in September 2022 about his online presence. Freshmen were freaking out because they'd found their substitute teacher on TikTok posting about adult topics like sexuality and gender identity. There was even an incident with an art club where he did a face painting on students and posted about it online, which the school flagged as inappropriate. In the HR meeting, administrators told him, "What you post represents the school." They weren't saying he couldn't be queer or trans, they were saying he couldn't blur the lines between being their substitute teacher and being an influencer whose students were watching his content. So when the hater emailed the old thirst trap videos in November 2023, it wasn't the reason he got fired. It was the final straw after a year of boundary violations that the school had been documenting. He was suspended immediately after the HR meeting. Some art teachers even wrote a letter defending him, trying to get him reinstated, but it didn't matter. The decision was made. So right now, Fuzzz99 is still here, still posting from that same bedroom, still doing the exact same performance he's been doing since 2020. Door slam, foot stomp, "I'm glad you asked," followed by whatever recycled rant about pronouns or gender identity he thinks people need to hear for the 1,000th time. He has 453,000 followers, which sounds impressive until you actually look at what's happening with those numbers. Most of them aren't watching anymore. They either forgot they followed him years ago, or they're just hate watching whenever he randomly pops up on their feed. The engagement tells the real story, with just very few likes and comments, unlike before. For someone with nearly 500,000 followers, that's a graveyard. His engagement rate sits at about 2.91%. And here's the kicker, roughly 27% of his followers are probably fake or inactive accounts. So that 453,000 number, it's inflated. His actual audience is probably closer to 300,000, and most of them aren't even paying attention. And if you scroll through his page, it's genuinely eerie how repetitive it is. Different topics, sure, but the exact same delivery, the exact same energy, the exact same performance he's been locked into for 6 years. It's like he figured out a formula in 2020 and his brain just stopped developing past that point. There's no growth, evolution, or self-awareness that this stopped working years ago. And he just keeps going. Same character, same shtick, same manic energy that feels more hollow every time you see it. There's something genuinely sad about watching someone this locked into a performance that stopped landing years ago, but who doesn't know how to be anything else.
Space-inspired names for people trying to find a name that feels most like them. Yeah. We are ready for blast off. I repeat, ready for blast off.
The comments are a mix of new people who are still quite supportive, people asking why he's still here, and people who've just given up and scroll past without engaging at all. The LGBTQ+ community doesn't claim him anymore. They haven't for years. When his name comes up, it's either as a punchline or as an example of what not to do. Every conservative talking point about LGBTQ+ people being groomers, being predators, being mentally unstable attention seekers who want to indoctrinate children, Fuzzz99 accidentally validates all of it. Not because any of it's true, but because he's so cartoonishly bad at representing the community that he becomes the example people point to when they want to argue about trans rights. And through all of this, the community rejection, the destroyed reputation, the proof that the grooming accusations were false but the damage being permanent anyway, he's never actually addressed any of it properly, never came out with a clear statement, never showed receipts, never tried to rebuild trust, just kept posting like if he performed hard enough, everyone would forget. This is what performance addiction looks like in its final stage, when you've become so dependent on the validation of strangers online that you can't stop performing even when the performance is actively destroying your life, even when nobody's watching anymore, even when the community you tried to represent has completely turned their back on you. Because what else does he have at this point? He lost the teaching job, community's respect, lost his credibility. The grooming accusations were false, but his reputation never recovered because he never properly defended himself. His views are in the toilet. His engagement is dying, but he keeps posting because this is all he knows how to be. Negative attention is still attention anyway. Hate comments still feed the algorithm. People blocking him and complaining that TikTok keeps showing them his content still counts as engagement. So the cycle continues. Post, get hate, post again, get more hate, post again. Because being hated is still better than being invisible.
Oh, shawty, it's my birthday. We gonna get a haircut cause it's my birthday. We gonna show ourselves some love cause it's my birthday. And yo, we don't care at all cause it's my birthday. Woo!
In 2020, he probably genuinely wanted to help people, make a difference, and use his platform for what he thought was good. But somewhere along the way, the platform became more important than the message, and now he's just a guy screaming into a void, chasing validation that stopped coming years ago. So what's it we have here? It's this: the internet will chew you up and spit you out if you let it. If you become so addicted to the performance, so dependent on the validation, so locked into the character that you forget how to be a real person, you'll end up exactly where Fuzzz99 is, posting to nobody, rejected by the community you tried to represent, and stuck in a cycle you can't escape.
Have me all cheered up and motivated to keep creating and doing what I do. I miss y'all so much. And even though this transition hasn't been the easiest for me, I'm still grateful for all the laughs and fun and time that I got to spend at the school with y'all.